Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and today, by request, we're having a conversation on the topic of strength training, and more specifically, inclusive strength training. Joining me for this topic is Siertle. Sarah is an inclusive strength and movement coach who helps people get strong so they can have fun and live their lives more fully. Sarah helps her clients get the most out of their life by helping them get strong enough to play with their kids or their grandkids, dance all night long, surf on vacation, or do whatever activity they really enjoy doing, all while teaching them to have a healthy relationship with exercise and stay consistent with movement. Sarah's coaching is beginner-friendly, movement-based, and size-inclusive. She believes in coaching that is kind, patient, and accepting, which tends to be the opposite of the mainstream fitness space that people usually experience when starting a workout routine or gym. Sarah is a certified applied health and human performance specialist and human movement specialist, which she says are just fancy ways of saying she's really good at helping people move their best and adapting exercises to fit her clients' unique bodies. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you because when we had our meet and greet connection call, I just got really excited about some of the things you're doing and some of the things you stand for. So I'm excited to bring that to people. Before we go there, tell us a little bit about how you actually got into this fitness journey, because like everybody else, it wasn't a straight path. So share a little bit to how that came about, will you?
Absolutely. I like to say that I was not an active child. I didn't even do fourth grade kickball or anything like that. I did zero sports. I was not an active kid. I took art classes, so I sat at my table and I did art stuff. And so I never really saw myself as athletic, strong, fit, any of those words at all. So after college, I had started swing dancing, which is still a big part of my life. And I was at the point where I was trying to get better at swing dancing. And everyone just kept telling me, oh, you need to go to the gym. You need to work on your core strength. That's going to make you a better dancer. And I put it off for a couple of years because I wasn't a fit person. So why would I go to the gym? I just needed to dance more. But finally, I hit a point where that was my option. So I started going to a gym. And then about 6 months into that, it was a class-based gym. So you sign up for classes and you go to different classes. So I signed up for this one class called Functional Athlete, and it turned into a strength training class. So I showed up and they're like, go lift weights. And I was like, oh, okay. I've never picked up a barbell before. I don't know how to do any of these exercises. I had no idea what to do. But the coach was super welcoming and kind. And over the course of many months, taught me everything I needed to know. And I was hooked. I loved it. I loved the feeling of lifting weights and that I could lift something heavier than my body. That was something I had never even thought I could ever do. So once I moved away, I found another strength training gym and a new coach, and I just kept going and going, and I've been obsessed ever since.
So you talk about being size inclusive and weight neutral. That's a huge point that you make sure everybody's aware of because you stand for that. Tell me why that interests you so much and what that really means.
I truly believe that fitness is for everybody. Strength training is for everybody. And in the current fitness industry, what you see in the mainstream, what you see on social media, what you see advertised in society is the diet culture sayings of never skip a day, hustle harder. The whole point is to get thinner even at the expense of your health. And I've just never really agreed with that. I'm not really sure when I decided to become an inclusive coach. I started my business that way very intentionally, but I don't know necessarily where the values were instilled from. But I always wanted people to feel included in whatever spaces they were trying to be in. That includes dancing too. My dance classes are also very inclusive and welcoming, able to be kind of you choose what's best for your body. So I'm not going to tell you you have to do something exactly this way or with a certain speed or a certain weight or anything like that, because I want you to choose what's best, because I want everyone to feel included and welcome.
I love that. And it made me think of a Zumba teacher that I had when my girlfriend and I first started. We went to like a whole bunch of different studios and we landed at this one that we really liked. And one of the main reasons we really loved her and that class is she had that same mentality of, I don't care. I'm going to do it, the most intense way because that's who she was, but I'll show other ways and I don't care. She's like, walk in place if you can't do something. You're moving and you're not on the couch and you're here. So it's all good. And that really felt good when just getting started and trying to figure it out and just get some movement into our lives. So I truly appreciate that sentiment. What would you suggest? So people out there, if they don't work with you, can't work with you, and we will talk a little bit more about how they can at the end. But if they don't, I mean, what are some things somebody can look for? Because to the point that I made at the beginning, most of the places out there, most of the programs, most of the gyms, that's not the experience that someone that's not in a thin body gets, or in a fit body, I probably should say. So what can we look for?
There's a couple different things. A big one is not really using before or after pictures in their advertising. Because if you're only advertising before and after pictures, you're advertising purely aesthetic results, which if you are strength training so that you can, like you said, play with your kids and your grandkids, or like go hike without your knees hurting, the aesthetics don't matter. And it's going to mean that coach is going to be focused on your overall health as a person, and not just what you look like or what your waist measures as. You also want to look for not using measurements at all. My personal trainer certification had a whole chapter about how to do waist measurements, taking people's weights, tracking things, taking like skin caliper tests. And I hated having to learn that because I knew I was never going to use it. And so if you're not going for those aesthetic sort of metrics, then there's no reason they should be included. So if you walk into a place to do an assessment and they're like, cool, let's measure you, you can just cut out and go, because they're not probably going to be aligned with like inclusive values.
Those are really great tips. I definitely wouldn't have thought of the before and after. That wouldn't have come to my mind at all, but it makes total sense.
It's so common.
For sure, especially to your point at the beginning, social media, right? It's an easy soundbite or a visual to put on a reel to show them and pull somebody in. So yeah, that makes sense. Talk to me a little bit about real life strength training. And I put that in quotes because you talk about it needing to align to sort of real life. Tell us about that.
I am a big fan of strength training to be able to do more with your life. So I think we might talk about some of the basic strength training exercises in a little bit, but past those basic strength training exercises, if you look at them all, there's a big focus on like having the perfect squat or lifting something in this one particular safe way. And you'll see this everywhere too, in maybe a more restrictive way, depending on the coach. But you do things in a very controlled environment. Whereas, when you're playing with your kids or you're walking somewhere or climbing something, it's not quite so perfect. Your knee is going to bend at a slightly imperfect angle, or you're going to twist a weird way when you're reaching for the ball that your kid dropped or something like that. And so I really like strength training that involves a lot of movement and balance and a variety of different types of exercises, so that as you bend and reach for that ball, you're not going to throw out your back or something.
Let's dive into some of the key starting exercises for folks to think about. So let's walk through them and give folks an idea of what they are, how they can do them, anything you want to share.
Yeah. So there are 5 basic categories of exercises that are really important for just helping your body move its best. Those are going to be a squat, a hinge, a push, a pull, and a carry, or core exercises. So a squat is when your hips and your knees bend. So, if I'm standing, I'm going to bend at my hips and my knees, and I'm going to squat down, and then I'm going to come back up again. It can also look like bringing your knees up towards your chest, up closer. So most people generally know what a squat looks like, even if they've never really done it very much. But amazing exercise for your legs, for your glutes. I'm not a really big fan of the whole booty buster workouts or anything like that. Again, focused on the aesthetics and like never missing a day. But I am a really big fan. Like your glute strength is so important, especially as you get older. Those muscles tend to get really weak and underused because we sit and we don't use them as much as we should. So the more you can work on like full body movements like squats that help strengthen your glutes, the better it's going to be.
So a squat, I think we talked about this and I asked you to validate that I was thinking right. You can also do a squat if you can't get yourself to do like a full squat that we have seen all online or seen in the gym, sitting down and standing up. That's a squat position. Or I think you also said stepping up and down on a step stool, that first one step, right? Or one of those step platforms. Those also use those same muscles. Yes?
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's good for people that are maybe just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So the second one is a hinge?
A hinge, yes. So this one you might not be quite as familiar with, but a hinge usually people associate with a deadlift. And that doesn't mean, like giant barbell, hundreds of pounds kind of deadlift or anything like that. So don't worry. It's more of just bending at your hips. So you're bending your hips a lot more with your knees. So more than your knees. So my favorite analogy for this is think about like standing next to a car and you kind of send your butt back to close a car door if your hands are really full. That's kind of what I'm talking about with a hinge. And so that can be a deadlift, a small deadlift, not a super ridiculous heavy deadlift. But any sort of movement like that where you send your hips back is going to be beneficial. This could also include a glute bridge where you're laying on the ground and you push your hips up. Anything that kind of pushes your hips so that you're standing straight up is going to be a hinge movement. And again, super helpful for the back of your legs, your hamstrings, your glutes, and especially your lower back, which I know is a concern for a lot of people.
And an area that I think helps strengthen us so much for all of the activities that you talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a hinge. Okay. Got it.
Yep.
Shut the car door with my butt. That's what I got out of that one.
Exactly. It's a great analogy. I love it.
It totally lets you picture it for sure. Nope. All right. What's number 3?
The next two are a little more self-explanatory, a push and a pull. So we're shifting more to our upper bodies. So a push is going to be pushing something away from your body or pushing your body away from something. The one people are probably most familiar with is going to be a push-up. So you're pushing your body away from the floor. And again, this doesn't just have to be a push-up from the floor. You see people doing the ridiculous one-handed push-ups, things like that. You can even start just against a wall. Put your hands against a wall and push your body away from the wall. That's a perfect way to get started. And it strengthens all of the muscles across the front of your body.
Okay, that's a good one. I do think those push-ups against the wall are a really great place to start. Thinking about doing a push-up is like, oh gosh, I'll never be able to do those. But you can definitely do the ones against the wall, and you can kind of restrict how difficult it is by how far you put your body apart and your arms and all of that. So I think you have a little bit of control there. Mm-hmm. So I like that one. All right, so that's a push. Pull, tug of war.
Yeah. Pull is literally the opposite. So anytime you're pulling something towards you or pulling your body towards something. Again, the one people are probably the most familiar with is going to be a pull-up. Whether you can do them or not, that does not matter. But that motion of pulling your body closer to a bar. Pull-ups, I mean, people kind of act like they're the end-all be-all. If you can do them, that's really cool, but they're absolutely not a necessity. You can achieve that pulling motion just by holding something and pulling it closer to you. My favorite exercise is a row. So you can, even just with what you have at home, it can be a backpack, it can be a soup can, hold it away from your body and then pull it closer to you. You can support your body on, put your arm on a chair or something like that. So you can bend over a little bit and use gravity to help you. And then just pull towards your torso. That's a pulling motion. And it's going to be really good for all your back muscles. So all of those muscles that help you keep your shoulders down and back, stand up really nice and straight, those are going to be what pulls help with.
I don't think I would have thought of incorporating any pulls in. So that's a good one. And pulling things towards you, that's something I wouldn't have really thought of. So that's good.
5 is next.
5 is next. What's 5?
5 is carry or core. It can kind of go for each one. Carry is the movement, but it works your core muscles. So something that I always like to talk about with my clients is that your core is not just your abs. If you look up core exercises, you'll find a ton of how do I get abs, ab exercises, crunches, anything like that. But your core is actually all of the muscles in your torso that are keeping your spine stabilized, that help you breathe, that help you stand up and stabilize your whole body. So it's really important to not just focus on ab muscles and focus on all of those core muscles in your torso.
What's something that you can think of that we could do at home if we wanted to try to do something in that carry? I mean, is it literally carry a bag of groceries? What would you suggest?
Yeah. Literally carrying a bag of groceries is a carry. A great core workout, if you have a kettlebell or something with a handle, can also be like a backpack filled with books. You pick it up on one or both sides and you just spend a minute or two walking around and then you put it down again. Because when the weight's there, it causes your body to have to work a lot harder to stand up straight. So if you keep your body straight as you're holding things like grocery bags, then it's going to strengthen your core a lot.
And so for those that are just listening to the audio, if we pick that backpack up or that grocery bag up, am I carrying it in the side of my arm? Am I bringing it to my chest and holding it like you would hold the baby on the front of you? Or how am I carrying that bag or that backpack?
Any of the above, actually.
Okay.
You can carry things by your sides with one or two arms. You can carry something up by your chest or collarbone. You can carry something kind of on your shoulders. You can carry something overhead. Pretty much anything goes. Obviously, by your sides is going to be kind of the beginner option. And then if you want to and you feel comfortable with, you can try to hold it in different configurations or places. Overhead might be a fun challenge that you try with something, a very lightweight or object every once in a while, just to see what it feels like and get to know your body a little bit better. But anything carrying any sort of weight is going to be great for your core.
Love that. So if somebody was just starting out and you want to hit all of these 5 and they came to work with you, I think one of the things that we all get hung up on is how much, how many reps, what do I do? Do you have I know everybody's different, so we're going to super generalize here, but is there in general, do 5 of each of these 10 times? I mean, I don't know. Is there a thing? Is there a template you would say is your general?
I would say there's a very vague template. Because again, there's a lot of variation. Different people come to me with different experiences, different body types, everything like that. And so it really kind of depends on the person. I'm a really big fan of spending those first couple weeks of training kind of helping people figure out what works best for them and what their limits are. So, you might start with a very, very lightweight, using a couple pounds. A big thing in strength training is always, trying to push heavier, or shaming people for starting out with lighter weights. And there's literally nothing wrong with starting with a weight that makes you feel comfortable. No one wants to lift a weight when they feel nervous. That's not going to be your best self coming to this workout. And so, pick something, like I said, like an object. Like a lot of times I tell people to use a shoe if that's what makes them most comfortable, and try the exercise out and see how their body feels. And then, add a couple pounds, or maybe try the 2-pound weight and then the 5-pound weight and then the 8-pound weight. Ramp up slowly in a way that makes you feel comfortable, especially if you're trying to do this by yourself at home. You don't have to go all out or think that you have to use the heaviest weight possible. So as you're building up, you kind of want to figure out where your limits are. If you do this movement somewhere between 5 and 10 times and you notice your body getting really fatigued, that's good. You don't need to push it any farther than that. And I recommend somewhere between 5 and 10 being a good starting place. Kind of explore how many feels good to you. Maybe start with 5, and then the next week, maybe try 6. And the week after that, try 7 reps of this exercise. And then maybe you go up a little bit in weight and you go back down to 5. What you want to avoid is just doing 1 or 2 and then calling it a day. So you want to get those reps in there. The more practice you get, the better it's going to feel long term. So even if you want to go up to 10 to 15, you can do that if you want.
And so let's just stick with the 5 for starting. So if I did 5 of any one of these, am I doing 5 of all of them? Is that best case that you're doing 5 of all of them and that's my sort of rotation or my set and then I'm done for the day? Or am I doing 5 of each of these things? So that's 25 and coming back to it again twice a day or 3 times a day. What's the suggestion there?
It's up to you and how much time you have. So something is always better than nothing. So if you have enough time to do literally 5 of each exercise in, say maybe 10 minutes or so, that's perfect. If possible, it would be really beneficial to come back to that same exercise 2 or 3 times. So you do 5 squats, let's say, and then you can do 5 deadlifts or hinge, some sort of hinge, and 5 of each. And then you take a little break, and then you can come back and do 5 more of each of them. Take a little break, come back and do 5 more.
And the little break, I think, is minutes. We're not talking hours. Ideally, we're talking ideally, right?
It can be either. I'm a really big fan of breaking it up and fitting your workout into where you have time. Like we're all busy people. Like not everybody has an hour to carve out to work out. And so if you can do 1 round in the morning when you wake up, and then 1 round at your lunch break maybe, and then 1 round in the evening, that is totally fine.
Love that. Okay, that's great. Let's talk about balance a little bit, because I think you alluded to it earlier, and balance is just such a huge thing when you start getting older. And, we all know there's a lot of injuries and hips and people fall and all that kind of stuff. And I think, the more I read, balance is so critical. Well, strength training in general, but balance is so critical to that. Do you agree with that? And do you have any suggestions on how to sort of build your balance capability?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Balance is wildly important. As you get older, no matter where you are in life, balance is always going to be helpful. Balance exercises really help stabilize the muscles around your joints. So hips, knees, ankles, places where people are usually like, oh, my knees are not feeling great today. Balance exercises are going to help that a lot. And aside from just general knowing how your body is moving and not falling. My favorite balance exercise are hopping and stabilizing. There's no good name for it. It's just hop to stabilize, unfortunately. I wish I had a catchier name for it. But you stand and then you pick up 1 foot, and maybe you just stay there for a while. Maybe your focus for a while is just balancing on 1 foot and getting comfortable with that. But when you're ready, you take a hop. My favorite one is hopping to the side a little bit, but you can also hop forward, or you can turn a little bit. You can hop in any direction, but you take a hop to the side, and then your other leg goes up and you balance, and you wait until you're kind of balanced and ready to go. And then you hop back onto the other foot. So as you get more distance between those hops, that's when it starts to get more and more challenging. So you can start really small, maybe you're just hopping a couple inches, and you hop over, and then you wait to balance, and then you hop and you wait to balance. And if balance is a new thing that you haven't really worked on before, it can be really helpful to have a chair there to help you balance. So if you feel like you need it, you can put a hand out and use the chair to help you. But then you can progressively make those hops bigger and bigger and go different directions with them and really challenge your balance that way. And it's going to help a lot with all of the stabilizing muscles in your legs.
I'm trying not to laugh because I can picture myself doing this hop, and I'm and falling trying to do it. So the chair is a good option. Yes, absolutely. Because truthfully, just doing the 1 foot balance thing is something I've been working on. And it's so funny because 1 foot was really, really, really strong. And I don't know if that's a normal thing. And I could stand there I gave up, but for whatever, as long as I wanted to, really. The other foot, I could barely get I don't know, it was seconds. It wasn't minutes. And I was already wobbling and trying to catch myself. Is that normal?
Totally normal. Yep. Our bodies are imbalanced in all sorts of ways, and that is totally fine and normal. Especially if you're hopping in different directions, you're going to have a favorite direction where you're way better on one side. If you're really concerned about it, a good way to kind of try to balance that out, or if you want to really work on improving that other side, is coming back to it multiple times a day. So, if you do that couple seconds of balance 3 to 5 times a day on that one side, it's going to help get better and improve.
Yeah, make that side stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So fun. These are great tips. Speaking of fun, let's talk about something really fun for a minute. So you dance.
Mm-hmm. I do.
I actually saw one of your videos and I was so impressed with you dancing, but it also made me think of, and I wanted to ask just out of curiosity, do you do those things where you don't know what the song is or your partner is and you're just going to get thrown in with somebody, or do you have a set partner and a routine?
I usually just get thrown into it, actually.
You do? So fascinated by that. And to tie it to this, well, you can talk about it, but to tie it to this, it looks like such a workout.
It is such a workout. I just got back not too long ago from a 5-day long dance event, and I was tired. And it's a lot of movement. You dance, the band starts at 9 p.m. and plays till 3 a.m. or something, like you get pretty sweaty. It's definitely a workout.
So the reason I bring that up was I think it's cool for one thing, but also just to remind people that I know we've said it before, but to say it again, find something you love that's movement, because that is exercise. And, most of the folks that listen know that I did Zumba for a lot of years, and it took me forever to find something that I love, because I, like you, was like absolutely not a person that exercised until I found that. Now, unfortunately, I had to stop because of my sciatica, and it just kept, every time I go, it kept causing it to flare up. But I did for years, and it's so fun. You don't realize that you're exercising. So I just think it's a great reminder. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's tennis, maybe it's golf, maybe it's a virtual reality workout like some of the gals and I from the community do these days. Maybe it's, I don't know, whatever.
Yes. 100% yes.
There's so many things we can incorporate that are movement that aren't really what we would consider as exercise.
Find what you love to do and do it a bunch.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And from somebody, in a full transparency, again, these guys know me pretty well, full transparency, I'm still not great at getting in my movement. That has just always been a thing, and it still is a thing. But hey, we're all a little imperfect, including me. And that's one of the things that I continue to try to improve. But I do think this topic and strength training is so important. And the more that we hear out there as far as getting to our middle age or beyond, it's so important. It's even more important than exercising as we traditionally thought of it. So that's really why I think this is such a critical message to get out there.
Definitely agree with that.
A lot of head shaking going on.
I forget that we're not really recording video.
Well, we are recording it, and it is on YouTube, but the far majority of listeners are still audio only. What else? Is there anything that we didn't hit on that you would want to leave with folks? Any nuggets of wisdom that you would want to share for people to think about?
I loved what you just said about how we're all a little imperfect, because when it comes to workouts, especially if you're trying to do that more kind of traditional fitness workout, going to a gym, strength training, we get really hung up on the perfect workout. And so you're sitting on the couch, you need to go work out, but you realize your workout's an hour long and you don't have enough time to get that in anymore. And so instead of saying, I don't have time for my whole workout, I'm just going to call it for the day, can you do 30 minutes? Can you go for a walk? Can you do a really short workout at home? Like something body weight, do a couple, get up on in your kitchen floor and do a couple squats. We get really hung up on that perfection, or wanting that perfect workout, or wanting the specific amount of reps, wanting to know exactly how much time you should work out for, if X amount of time is enough. And honestly, if you're moving your body, it is enough. Something is literally always better than nothing. And any type of movement that you can get in, or like I said, literally just do 5 squats and call it a day, that's perfect. It can be helpful to kind of work with yourself and realize that it doesn't always have to be the perfect circumstances to be effective.
I like that. And it reminds me to get out of the all or nothing thinking. Mm-hmm. It applies here, and it's what you were alluding to. It applies to those that are listening that are still struggling with trying to do better with their healthy eating or their healthy lifestyle, or really any choices, anything you're working on. It never has to be all or nothing. Anything that you do to move closer to your goal is a good thing, whatever that goal is. One step is better than no steps. So I think that's a great message. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talk to me today. We will put all your links out there. And just to remind folks, you do all virtual, you offer all of this stuff virtual, and you do group and one-on-one type things.
All virtual.
What's your signature class or your signature offering?
I would say my signature offering is Colorful Strength, which is a 12-week beginner strength group program. So we start at like the literal very beginning. If you have never picked up a dumbbell before and have no idea what to do, over the course of 12 weeks, I teach you starting with those basic exercises that I talked about, but then going into different ways to add more movement to them and other aspects of strength training. So by the end of the 12 weeks, you can walk into a gym and feel like you actually know what you're doing.
I love that, to get people started. And from your house, you do it at home on a Zoom or something like that, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Awesome. Well, thank you. And we will
Yep.
put your links out there. I hope people take some time to check out your work and your offerings. This has been super helpful to level set with us. Thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.